Okay, we're drawing to the end of the show. There's a couple of things. So we've been recording a lot of this, as you've been aware, for those sessions which have been in this plenary venue. They will be cut and edited by our video team, and then will be put online for the rest of the network to engage with asynchronously. I think that's a great way that we've been trialing in this extended conference sort of format that we've had to try and get things out to others in the network. But what that means for this session is slightly complicated. We're going to record the first part, which includes, as I've advertised, the presentations by the moles, and then we'll do some thank yous, but then we're going to stop the recording to run into the BGM, and I think we just need to justify why that's the case. Pollen, as we've been hearing and talking about, is a commons, and it's also a claim space, and it is kind of the responsibility and privilege of those who hold the space at the time to, make decisions as a collective on the part of the broader network. There's no central organizing authority, and I think to record our deliberations here as part of this biennial general meeting, and then to involve others who may have different opinions but are not present with us as we sort of indaba together, I don't think it would be in the spirit of the way that Pollen has operated. So I hope that it's perhaps not as transparent as could be possible, but it's the way we have done things so far, and there is something precious to be able to come together in person to make things happen. So that's the way we'll do it. And for Kurt and others, I'll just let you know when to stop the recording. And yeah, then we will go into the BGM, which Jens will host, and I'll also chip in. For those who are not part of the network, and I've seen many South African and other colleagues who have joined in with us, please do stay. We would hope you would consider yourselves now part of the gang, the broader group. And I hope you'll see what we really value about coming together like this for these kind of events. Right, but before all of that, I'm really happy to call up what's something of a pollen tradition, which is this moling. And some sparrows in the network have passed on. I don't know if you can see this, but apparently this harkens back to Dan's glam rock days. So I'll just leave that up there. Dan and the moles, please.
He's photoshopped me onto that picture. Could you just please observe, friends, that as a result of that picture, none of the other moles now want to join me. Even though I think you'll agree that at least 3 of them do actually have hairstyles which could fit in that group. Right. So thank you very much indeed for this opportunity. If you are not sure what moling involves, it is simply a chance to hold back a mirror to the conference and think and say, these are some of the things that we've seen. It is not exhaustive, it is selective. Things which have jumped out to this particular group of people. These are some of the things which are missing. We'll be doing that together. And anything which is missing is not a criticism of our grouping as a whole. It is simply important that we reflect upon what we've been able to include and what we have not. And the process of doing this is relatively simple. I put out a call at the beginning of the registration process several months ago, asking for people to join in. And people stepped up. A couple of couldn't make it, but then we meet in the mornings and the evenings. We try and make sure that every session in this multifarious conference is covered. We talk through what we came up. We agree who should talk about the stuff which came up. We tweet as much as possible, and we try to keep an eye on the conversations which are happening. So we try and make it as broad and inclusive a process as possible. And to start that broad and inclusive process, I'm going to be using this thing here, Mentimeter. Have people come across this before? What I'd like you to do, please, is get your phones and laptops and devices and go to menti.com, which you can see at the very top. And I'd like you to type in the code, the 8-digit code you can see there, I hope as well, 88488149. And you will see that the question appearing, what have you enjoyed at Pollen 2023? You get to put in 3 things. You can put in words you see on the screen already. You are allowed to do that. The smaller something is, the less important people think it is. So currently only one person has mentioned moleing. So if the moleing team could mention it more often, Yeah. Where's Ha gone? Yeah. Yeah. Who is writing Ha a lot? Yeah. Yes. And we've got why and what in there. For a moment they were together. Drink some tea. What a fantastic list. We'll be coming back to the Mentimeters as we go on. I think I'm going to be handing over now to other molds. Lottie, I think you're first up, if that's okay.
Yes. Hi everyone, my name is Lotte de Jong from Wageningen University. And yeah, we were talking about things that we that we recognized as common themes, and we thought also something that stood out was the representation methods of the community or the people that we work with. So how as scientists we are representing this group. So these were some methods that I saw in different sessions that I attended, and we discussed also a bit what more methods could there be. So initially inviting the activists to tell the story was a method that was seen. Also we saw surveys of whole villages, for example, that also fed into more quantitative data. Also in-depth interviews, observations, and that were regularly used. Also there was a discussion on the consultation with chiefs in the South African context, versus talking to those who own the land and then who can represent this community and the needs and the struggles. As an idea was also mentioned deep listening and recognizing that a community is heterogeneous. We found reading out stories of individuals and their struggles. It's also a way of representing. Next to that, consulting archive for memories. Active engagement and meaningful relation building with activists and social movements. So an insider-outsider perspective of joining a movement, but also being an outsider and at the same time an insider, and the challenges that this brings. And the photo voice, so making pictures of, letting other people making pictures of what they think is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Lottie. We thought this was something that we could also workshop as well in our, as a larger grouping. There are 2 questions we'd like to put up to you. One, the research methods that we're using, and secondly, which ones we could use more of, so which one's relatively missing. Let's do this first question first. What are the techniques that we're using, please? It's the same code, it should be on the same access format. And as before, you're allowed to use the same words apart from ha, which is now banned. If there are any words coming up here which people want to speak to, please do be ready to do so. Anything which you contributed here which is unusual or really important to you that you want to share more about? I can see two things going on here. Not many of the words are becoming in large letters, which means we're thinking of lots of different things. And sometimes we're saying the same things that we're using a lot of, which means we need to use more of the stuff we're using a lot of. Now, this session is being recorded, and can I check with the people recording, are you capturing the screen to make doubly sure? Okay, thank you. Again, if people want to talk to any of these things which are coming up, but feel free to. But there's an interesting trend in participatory filmmaking, in storytelling, in writing with collaborators, autoethnography. Personally, this is just my personal bias, I'm glad to see quantitative methods is in there, agent-based modeling, some of them are numbers-based science. Agent-based modeling is as popular as humility. Anything else to add to this? Right, we'll go back to our presentation, and we'll come back to the Mentimeter later. Okay, it's the Lord Chief High Enforcer mole. All the moles get different names, and that varies according to your mood. So you get anxious moles, tired moles, exhausted moles, bossy moles. I'm not saying who that was. Could the Lord Chief High Enforcer mole please take the seat?
Yeah, okay, so hi. It's been really fun being a mole. It's definitely kept me on my toes more in all the sessions. But it's also been really interesting to talk with the other moles about some of the themes that we're seeing in the conference, because I've been doing some of that recently anyway, because myself, Dr. Ariane Collins, and also Dr. Elia Apostolopoulou, who sadly is not here, are going to be co-editing a new Routledge Handbook of Political Ecology. And we wanted to flag it here because we're hoping it's going to be something that is useful and inspiring for you guys, and also because there's quite a lot of contributing authors here at Pollen. So just very briefly, we think that the first handbook is still relevant. We're not trying to refresh it or redo it or revise it. We're going to do a new handbook. And we're foregrounding the kind of radical roots of political ecology and hoping to extend these in this handbook. And we're structuring it into 3 different sections. So Ariane's going to speak a little bit about the section that she is going to be leading on, which is Decolonizing Political Ecology. And then I'm leading on the second section, which is about 21st century natures. And within each section, we've got these spotlight sections. I've not listed all the chapters because we just simply didn't have room. And then Elia's going to be doing a section on activism and praxis. So it's been brilliant to be here and be thinking about whether some of the themes that we've been talking about are being reflected in the conference. And they have been. And one of the things I'm really excited about in my section is that we're thinking about what the key politics and also political theories are that people are using to understand contemporary natures. But we're also thinking about this shift, this shift to thinking with and extending more than human, multi-species theories. And that's definitely been here at the conference too. So could you please flip one slide on? So that's one theme that we wanted to draw out that's been really exciting at this conference and has come up in a number of different sessions. I'm just going to ask one of the conveners, Sayan Banerjee, because he had some brilliant discussion points from a session he convened, so he's just going to outline these here.
Yeah, thanks. So we had a session on what I termed as a kind other than human political ecologies of wildlife conservation. But I'm glad to see that other than my session also, there were different sessions which kind of hovered around the question of the non-human or the other than human. So I think political ecology is going through a shift, as well as because it's kind of a diverging field and everything comes in within this framework. So probably 25 years back, we asked that where is the ecology in political ecology, right? It's the classic Andrew Veda piece. Yesterday, I had the question from one of the audience that where is the politics? So, we are still struggling with these kinds of questions when we are dealing with the other than human, that how to make it more political, so that, and how to integrate the more than human part and the political part, so that it leads to kind of leads to the answers that what should be the ideal justice-oriented landscape should be, or the life should be. So let's see what happens. Maybe in the next 3-4 years, we will come up with our own kind of understanding of how to include other than humans into the whole thing. But we need more methodological innovations. We need more understanding of the animal behavior, plant behavior, animal lives, plant lives into political ecology. Yeah, that's all.
Thanks so much. And just before I hand over, I'll just say some of the questions that have come out from across the sessions have been thinking about where this is new, and if it is new, why is it so new? What new kind of questions, what thinking, what methods is this opening up for us as political ecologists? What methods and possibly decolonial politics do we need to attend to if we're doing this kind of work? And what are these tensions around politics and power? So thank you. Who am I passing over? Which? Oh, sorry. My lovely co-editor, Ariane.
She forgot about me. So just to say, not very much, but a little bit of the context on the decolonial section of the handbook. Jess's idea was to try to make the handbook as critical and forward-thinking as possible, and that meant integrating and working on decolonizing political ecology. This is not to say that political ecology hasn't always tried to grapple with the colonial question and the way in which it shows up in landscapes that we tend to study, but just that decolonial thought has taken on a new recent urgency and moved with a certain impetus. And we felt that it would be useful and helpful to try to think about how we could further grapple with colonial issues around and through political ecology, and to use it as like the leading section of the book and to try to filter those ideas through the rest of the book. So we're trying to have as diverse, both as much diversity as possible, not just in authors, but also in like the places they study and the methods that they use to study them. That's something that we should, with these reminders, that we should perhaps think about a bit more. But yeah, we do feel though, like my presence here has shown that people are thinking about their positions in relation to what they study, but I will pass the mic on to the person who's going to, the mole who's going to reflect on that, and that's Kapil.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am a PhD student at King's College London. My name is Kapil, and I have my doubts about what can I tell you new about positionality, as a PhD student to other PhDs and other senior researchers. So please have patience with me if I make any mistakes. You all know about what positionality is, how it relates to reflexivity, so I don't need to go into all of that. I'll present some recollections, some synthesis, and some gaps which our Molling team saw from this conference. To start with, I take inspiration from what I saw today in the exhibition above, which was, I read a sentence which said, "The most successful liars are the ones who have convinced themselves." My friend Emmanuel told me yesterday, reflecting back on his earlier self, "I see how naive I was. I wanted to make everyone happy." Sometimes we are naive, sometimes we lie, and sometimes we are ignorant. I also heard in the conference why Tekle chose to work on Tigray. I also heard why Fabio is working on a disease infesting olive trees in Italy. I also heard why Simon mentioned yesterday that he will no more do solo research in Burkina Faso. So on behalf of the Pollen team, I make 2 points about positionality from Pollen to 2023. First, to have an ongoing engagement with our positionality. We heard from researchers coming from different locations, from placed in global north to researching in global south, from placed in Glenwood to working in townships, from placed in townships to coming to Glenwood to study and to go back to research in townships. Some of us work in areas close to our birth and some in quite far off places. This diversity in who we are, what our positions are, and what our motivations for research are is a strength. But let's not romanticize this difference in our positionality, but engage with this difference as a way to learn from each other. Positionality, I thought, was also visible in the naming of a few sessions at this conference. I think naming is important because naming is a world-making practice. For instance, Africa and Political Ecology session could have been Political Ecology of Africa. To those of us who think such naming is irrelevant, it speaks of our positionality. The second position that comes out is from knowing about positionality to doing something about it. Mano Ramutsendela said yesterday that it is more about doing decolonial political ecology than talking about it, because we all can talk about it. Yes, we all talk about positionality in our classroom, but it is also important to see how much of that reflects in the research we do, the methods we adopt, the theories we align ourselves with, and the research agendas we shape and help shape. It becomes key to be challenged and to face the critique that comes our way and listen to it. We got to be aware that waving a flag of political ecology and chanting justice, justice in some cases can be tokenism. To conclude with our positionality, we should question if we have come any closer to the title of this conference, Political Ecology, North, South, and Beyond. If we do take the title seriously, then what is the beyond? Have we come across it in the conference? And if not, then what does beyond look like? In what other places can beyond be found? Last evening, I had a conversation with my friends Juan and Francisco over Bunny Chow, where they discussed how their experience of Latin American Congress of Political Ecology in Quito was different from this conference. And I wonder how beyond is thought in other such places. Thank you.
Thank you very much, couple. Cieko.
So I'm new to the world of social science. I'm a former natural scientist, a chemist by profession. I came into this world very much interested in the agrarian world because food is very much an integral part of how we grew up and how we survived as human beings. And so throughout this conference, one of the themes I was kind of picking up was the tension that's always there in terms of social justice issues, in terms of how people access resources, how they're excluded, how they lack the means and the ability to access the benefits from the natural resources that exist, versus the grand narratives of how do governments grow economies, how do we create more jobs, how GDPs needs to grow, how extractive industries basically legitimize themselves in our world, while also making it very difficult to achieve a socially just world. Thank you.
Okay, and following on from that, one of the themes that we also came across quite a lot was this idea of marginality recognition and the challenge of scale, because quite a lot of what I was coming across was people celebrating and pointing out different interpretations of livelihoods and ways of living which can be perceived to be marginal. And we can see this in Prof. Mvu's work in Mbateni, where he was pointing out that, in fact, these smallholders don't see themselves as scratching away at the land. They see themselves as redefining, reclaiming space and dignity through their activities. And then the work in Malawi, which also, through techniques of photo voice, was able to point out that smallholder farmers have a very different interpretation of their livelihoods from those which provided the dominant narratives. And the question I ask myself is that celebration, recognition is important. And there are some serious forces of degradation, damage and problem that we heard about in the very first session, that can be hard to keep in focus at the same time as we're looking at trying to celebrate the marginal. And I struggle with that tension myself. Nathan.
Okay, just really brief thoughts on, I mean, my starting point, but I work for the Centre for Future Natures. I'm a communications person. I'm not an academic. So my starting point, I was really interested in styles of communication and how people were representing and talking about and showing the work that they've been doing. And so I was looking at, just looking around in the talks I went to, the way that people were using maps, photos and diagrams, but also more complex things like stories, photo stories and artworks to try and get across the ideas that they were exploring alongside formal academic writing. And what struck me was that there was such a variety of those things, and the choices that people have made about those, you know, which things to use, are obviously not always explained, but there's a lot of thought that goes into that. But as we moved through the conference, I was struck by the number of times that people were discussing emotions and also feelings as distinct from emotions, whereby the body becomes involved. And particularly the session on memory brought that up, that there's physical symptoms of memories and trauma that sort of goes on and on, that it is, you know, is maybe not resolved. But academic research is required to follow certain formalities in how ideas and findings are written up. So to me, that created an interesting kind of question, or like, what are the possibilities? Because there are things that words are not sufficient to express. And so that led me back to thinking about, well, we've got people here who have had like really deep engagements with lots of methodologies, as you've seen at the beginning, but including art and art-based methods and creative research. And you know, I can mention my colleague Tim, who created the comics, and also Felipe's talk on working with indigenous artists, and just exploring like different ways of thinking about things. Researchers collaborating with art, not because art kind of directly is just about feelings or emotions. It doesn't directly convey those things. It also is a way of thinking about those feelings and emotions, and a way of looking at them, like listening intently to them. So it gives us a different way of thinking and seeing the world. So those are some of the thoughts that I had from the conversations that lots of people were bringing. And I sort of, on a more positive note, I would also sort of say, you know, there are also stories of people like really putting the effort into caring for each other and generating morale and like feelings of celebrating the things which go well in communities and in relationships, and that those are really important to hold on to as well. So obviously we've heard lots about difficulties that people face, but there's also a role for sort of thinking about how we sustain those memories and those hopeful things that sort of get people through the times when times are hard. They also need those things to hold on to. So those are things that came up for me. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Nathan. We need to get our thinking caps on now because there are two important questions I'd like to return to in the Mentimeter. And the first is, again, and to remind us, this is not a criticism of what we've done over the last 3 days, but it's an important aspect of our self-reflection. What are the topics in political ecology which have not come up so much? Now, I think I gave you room to put in 5 things here. I've constrained you before, my apologies. You don't have to put in all 5. But this is it's quite important for us to realize what we're missing, what we're missing out. We may be excluding it. It may need more attention. Again, these are not things that we individually need to add to our do list. They may be things that we need to add to the broader community or to seek to promote in the broader community. Again, it's interesting how diverse this is. There's a lot of things which are coming up once, although there is some overlap. So queer theories on ecology and queer ecologies are mentioned in different ways. Thank you, folks. This is a really interesting list. Jens, it would be great to compare things which don't come up here with which do come up in next meetings. And the very last slide, because I think this is stabilizing, this one requires a lot of thought, the next slide. It's probably the most important slide that we've thought about and put together as a Molling team. And it is the one that we will be concluding on. So if you could be ready with your thinking caps and your pens and thumbs and fingers at the ready, it's this. You can participate. Okay. So I think this is drawing to a close. Adrian is almost as important to the food. You can put Adrian in 3 times if you... We need to... You can edit your food answer as well. What a fantastic list. And what a testimony. Comrades, could you join with me in congratulating the organisers? And thank you to the moulding team for all their work.
So thanks very much for that. We're definitely feeling the love. Much appreciated, everyone. I just have my own sets of thank yous to extend. Of course, it takes a huge team to put on this kind of event. First of all, just to thank our sponsors, South African National Conference Bureau, without which this couldn't have gone ahead, and the National Research Foundation. I'd also like to acknowledge everyone who was supposed to go to the last Pollen, but then couldn't, and still left their funds with Amber and the team in the Solidarity Fund. And that has allowed, along with the contributions we made from this conference, about 70 people to get bursaries of various forms to attend this conference, which they wouldn't have otherwise been able to attend. So thanks to Sussex IDS and the team there and the Solidarity Fund, and to all of you who also contributed to the Solidarity Fund this time. Yeah, then of course, to our administrative support, African Agenda, Keith, Sadika, Alfreda, Lisa. Some of you would have also emailed extensively with Davinia some time back. We really couldn't have done it without you. Thanks for all the professional support and collegial interaction, really much appreciated. And I hope that others will also seek support from them if possible, but if not, others who are capable, because this is a very demanding task. And in organizing these kinds of things, it is really necessary to get the help. Can I also thank then my local organizing team, LOC, and the volunteers. Do you mind standing up, please, if they're still in the room? And Shona, you're hiding. Yeah. It's been fantastic to navigate this with you. Nice to form collegial connections that I hope will last long into our careers here at UKZN. Much appreciated. I'd also like to thank all the technical staff, the camera people, those on sound. Kurt, thank you so much for your interventions. James and Ruben in the back, fantastic. Thank you so much. You're all very much appreciated. Just as a final closing thing, we've got quite a nice announcement to make, and I'd like to invite Jens up to deal with that. Well, my laptop's, is it on your laptop by any chance?
I have it here. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, let's do that. Maybe while that's setting up, I'd also just like to acknowledge those who participated in this conference in a very active way, but were not able to participate and be here in person. So we had 80 people who participated in 6 pre-conference workshops that we ran. These were people who were not able to travel or needed to present urgently with their work. And if you haven't already checked out those 6 pre-conference workshops on the website, please do go and do so. There's some fantastic content there, and it's in an asynchronous format. So the presentations from this plenary venue will also be in a similar format. And we welcome those broader people in the network who couldn't be with us here this time to go and check that out as well. And for the next time that the conference is partially or completely in the global south, please come south. Or the geographical south, let's put it like that. I'll hand over to Jens.
Don't run away yet, because as one of the coming organizers, I just want to make sure that we thank you once again and thoroughly. And I brought some Danish chocolate turtles, filled chocolate turtles for you as a small compensation for all your hard work. All right, so this is the moment that I have been waiting for. I hope you have also been waiting for it a little bit, at least for a short time, announcing the next Pollen conference, which will take place already next year. And I can tell you, we've been looking for a site for a long time. We wanted to find something that was really accessible for everyone, to kind of make sure that we improved on inclusivity, et cetera, and this is what we came up with. Of course not. No, as a matter of fact, we're planning to have a conference in 3 sites. So we will be in Dodoma, Tanzania, in Lima, Peru, Lund, Sweden, June 11 to 13 next year. And so we are an organizing team of 4 institutions, these 3 institutions, and then I'm representing the University of Copenhagen. We'll be responsible for the online part of the conference. And I can just briefly say there's a lot of people involved in all these sites, but some of the key people in Dodoma is Matthew Buki and Wilhelm Kivango from the Geography Department. And in Lima, Peru, it's the Catholic University, Deborah Delgado, and Diego Ordonio. And in Lund, Sweden, it's the Luxus Sustainability Center, so Wim Karten, Mine Islar, and Torsten Krause, who's going to be with us in a minute, because Lund is also hosting the Secretariat at the moment. So the idea is to not have a fully online conference. We want to try and create a format where you can be in any of these 3 sites physically, enjoy an offline conference, a bit like this, but try to create some connectivity across these 3 sites. So we expect to have an offline program for the most of the day, but then there is a band of time. It's going to be in the late afternoon in Lund and in Dodoma, and early morning in Peru, where we will try to create connectivity, have some online mediated plenaries, and also have the possibility of hybrid panels. So if you have colleagues who are thinking of being in one of these sites and you're being the other, and you want to propose panels, you can think this into your panel, that we have the possibility of making these connections. All of this will become much more clear after, in around August, September, where we will announce a call for content for this conference. We'd like to see both traditional panels with papers, but very much also invite discussions, artist interventions, or activist and discussion-formed panels or other interventions. So we'll create a submission portal where you can submit your contact, and then we'll craft programs in the 3 sites and try to create some connectivity across. So the homepage is already up, and this is the front page, and this is kind of the title for the conference. So we're trying to, and I guess we kind of hit approximately correct, we want to really continue some of these conversations that we've had here, trying to blur boundaries between Norths and Souths, and also talk about how we can move towards more just and plural futures. And I think it's the conference, just creating the collaboration around the conference, has also been a move towards trying to create something together that builds on mutual respect across different institutions with different traditions and different priorities, and doing it in a way that is equal and respectful of each other. So I think the building of the conference is also kind of epitomizing what we'd like to do with this conference. So the word towards is a little bit about thinking about transition, transformation, thinking about the seed of political ecology. How are we constantly moving towards and trying to nurture something that is more just and that is more plural? With the word just, we wanted also to signal a little bit that we'd like to see more conversation between political ecology and environmental justice. I think these 2 fields that have in some way a common history, but also a disparate history, disparate roots and traditions. But I think there could be some really good conversations between these 2 fields, and I think we've seen this also in this conference already. Plural, also about, could invoke many things, but one of the things we've also been talking a lot about is this kind of transdisciplinary aspect. How do we reach out to society? In what ways? How do we also embody transdisciplinarity? All of us are scholars, but we're also people, we're also humans. Some of us also self-identify as activists or as concerned citizens, or as parents, or as family members, and how do we also try to blur these boundaries between the professional and the personal? That's also something I think we'd like to try and have as a theme in this conference. And then futures, of course, we're living in a time where there's very competing visions of futures, and they're being planned, they're being rolled up in models, in plans, in investment deals, in trade agreements, etc., etc. Some of them are very dystopian, and some of them are very utopian. So how can we keep those in mind as we try to move towards the futures that we'd like to see? So those are some of the ideas behind this short title that we have used to frame the conference. And on the homepage that is already up, you can see a little more language, and you can see some of this information that I've been giving you here. So the timeline is that you can now already start to think about where would you like to be, on which continent would you like to be and participate in this in 2024. And then in a couple of months, we'll announce a call for content for the conference and hope to see you help us build some exciting programs across these 3 sites. So looking very much forward to it, and see you somewhere in June 2024.